So the U.S. is getting ready for celebration 250. USA is 250 years old. And so there's going to be parades, fireworks, celebrations, picnics, barbecues, families gathering together, and a lot of hoopla. What is the uniqueness of this celebration? What is the uniqueness of this blessed country that we live in? There's something fascinating about the founding of this country that we don't find in any other country, at least not to the extent of the United States. This country begins with the signing of a Declaration of Independence. As the late Chief Rabbi of England, Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, points out, that this is referred to as a covenant. Several places, our founding fathers referred to it as a covenant. This country is founded on this covenant. The Declaration of Independence is really the soul of the United States. The Constitution is the implementation of the covenant. And what is fascinating is we find so many parallels of how the founding fathers founded this country in a way parallel to what is found in the Torah. So, for example, when the founding fathers were deciding on a seal, the Great Seal of the United States, Benjamin Franklin came up with the first draft, and that was a draft depicting the Exodus from Egypt. They viewed themselves as Exodus 2.0. They deeply believed in God's involvement, in God's saving them, in God guiding them to what they were doing. The inscription on the Liberty Bell, which was rung on July 4th, 1776, is a verse straight from Leviticus, proclaiming freedom in the land. The most powerful distinction of the covenant, most powerful distinction of what this country is founded on, is the preamble to the Declaration of Independence. And that is, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which was dominated by a hierarchy that was set from time immemorial and never changed. A hierarchy that if a person was born as an aristocrat, that's the family they would continue with. If a person was born as a serf, that is how they continued. In a society where no one was considered equal, here a new society begins. But not only a society where everyone is considered equal, the most significant change is that they're endowed by their Creator. In societies which have equal rights for their citizens, this is an equality which is bestowed by the government to the people. The government is declaring that they are equal. Well, if the government declares that they're equal, then the government can take away that equality. If the powerful are the ones who are declaring that people are equal, then with their power, they can change that. What is totally unique about this country is that the concept of equality precedes government. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Was it self-evident? Which other society ever had anything like this? And even till today, I don't know if any other country has anything like this, which declares that equality is not something we are born with. It doesn't say we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men, that all people evolved equally, because nothing evolves equally. And no one is born equal. That is something we are endowed by God, is unique. And where does this come from? This comes straight from the Torah, where it says, in the beginning of Genesis, that God created man in the image of God. If we're created in the image of God, then we are all equal. We may be all different. We are individuals. But every individual is created in the image of God. We are infinite expressions of the oneness of God. God is one, and God's oneness is expressed infinitely in the dignity of the human being. So the founding fathers had the wisdom, and according to scholars, and primarily someone who is the ambassador, the Israeli ambassador to the United States, Yechiel Leiter, who's a scholar an expert and a scholar on the works of John Locke, points out how the Declaration of Independence in many ways is copy and paste from so many different areas of John Locke's writing. And these writings from John Locke clearly go to Genesis about being created in the image of God. So this country is truly unique, and we're truly blessed to be in a country which is founded upon that human rights, human dignity, essential, infinite quality within every human being is something that precedes government. Government is there in order to protect, to assure that we preserve the equality, preserve the infinite dignity of every human being. And the fact that it's a covenant does not make it a privilege. On the contrary, it makes it a responsibility. Because when we are in a covenant, it is not a privilege. A covenant is where each party in the covenant has a responsibility. And so while certainly the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and everything else is there to protect the rights of every citizen, what it does not spell out, and for various reasons, it doesn't spell it out, it doesn't mean that we don't have a responsibility. And that's something which, on a birthday we are to reflect. On a birthday we are to be grateful. We are to thank God on a birthday. A birthday is a time where we have to reflect upon the gifts that we have, the blessings that we have in life. But at the same time, it's a time of reflection of where do we go from here. It's a time of reflection of how can we now proceed with greater blessings. On a personal birthday, we have to reflect upon what have we accomplished and what can we accomplish more. We have to reflect, what am I needed for? We have to reflect, is my purpose to live, or am I living with purpose? The founding fathers established and founded a country based upon purpose. It's based upon the idea, the concept, that there are things which are inalienable because they are divine. If they are divine, that also places a responsibility. Fascinating that the Talmudic statement that focuses on the concept that we are created in the divine image, also concludes with a statement. Therefore, every person must say, the world was created for me. If God created one human being in the world, and every human being is like an entire world, every person must say the world was created for me. And that is not a statement of entitlement. That is a statement of responsibility. So on this grand celebration, it's not by chance that 250 years is celebrated this year on a Shabbat. Friday night and Shabbat. So while the country can have fireworks in every Jewish home, we should have Shabbat candles. We should have lights. And the Shabbat candles that burn brightly on our table. Those Shabbat candles reflect the inner light. A light which doesn't just light up the darkness, which fireworks are wonderful. They light up the darkness. But with that, let's light up the homes. Let's not just light up our parades. Let's bring a higher meaning and purpose into our homes. Shabbat is one which is a covenant in the beginning of creation, and a covenant that is a covenant in our life. We have a Shabbat in our life. Shabbat creates community. Shabbat strengthens family, strengthens bonds with others. Shabbat is a time when I reflect. I strengthen my inner core of who I am, who we are. And with that, we go out of Shabbat into the rest of the week. And so on this USA 250, it's a time to reflect, it's a time to re-strengthen our inner core, our national soul, the inner core of what this country is truly founded on, recognizing the divine, on recognizing the infinite human dignity, on recognizing responsibility, on recognizing the infinite quality of what true liberty is based on, which is a covenant. A country which is blessed in so many ways, as an example to the world. We certainly face challenges, many challenges today. But the blessing is, this country is founded on a covenant. We can amend the Constitution, but we can't amend the covenant. On the contrary, the covenant was set in place at a time where the people living in the country were not necessarily living up to the covenant. But that covenant was an anchor, where throughout history was continuously recalibrated. But we recalibrated ourselves to live up to a covenant, to this covenant. So the blessing, the reflection on this USA 250 is that God bless America. God bless the United States. And we have to recognize that the blessings of the United States were taken straight from a divine source. That divine source which is in the Torah. Being an American and being a Jew is not only living in this country with safety and security and equal citizenship. It's a lot more than that. To be a citizen in this country as a Jew, we have to recognize responsibilities. We have to recognize that we are all blessed by God. And may this blessing continue beyond the 250, where we recognize the rights that we have, the privileges that we have, come with responsibility. They come with Briti Shalom, a covenant of peace, a covenant of being united with others, whether we agree with them or not. A country which has respect for each other, a country which has respect for the country, a country which has respect for the flag, a country which has respect for those who are in the armed forces, the men and women who risk their lives, their freedoms, so we can have freedom. So on this Shabbat, USA 250, which is a time to realign ourselves, to recalibrate ourselves, to reflect and to celebrate. God bless America. May we celebrate and celebrate with joy, with dignity, with faith. And we continue on past 250, as the United States has been a guiding force and a light among the nations. Let us remember the deep friendship and the alliance of Israel and the United States of America, that the two have the same values, based on the same biblical verses, based on the same divine guidance. And may this continue to spread, because we can only have a peaceful and united world when we recognize that we are all created in the image of God. And as a result of being created in the image of God, we must all ask ourselves, is our purpose to live, or are we living with purpose, with a higher purpose? As the Talmud says, every person must ask and say, the world was created for me, which is a statement of responsibility. And God is saying, I created you, only one you that is like you. What are you doing to using your talents, your abilities, your unique purpose to fulfill that purpose? An amazing purpose. That is really the covenant of the United States. And with that, once again, Shabbat Shalom and God bless America.